So the closing keynote today is somebody who's been involved in a community for a very, very long time. She is the co-chair of Tech App Delivery, and she's also famous or infamous for the Kuberoki events that I don't know when you started doing them. But I think you'll be talking about them in a bit. And her talk today is, I think, in line with the heroes and also with movies, referencing in a land before time, discovering exactly the right thing to observe, right? Okay. The stage is yours. Lian, go for it.
Hi. Thank you. This is a very intimidating stage. I did ask if I can move around a bit because it's so great to be on this awesome stage. Thank you all for coming. So this is not a technical talk. Feel free to not take any notes, just to sit there, enjoy, and if you can take something with you, that would be great. If not, at least we had some fun, or I had some fun. So I just want to start talking a little bit about myself. My name is Lian. Some of you may have known me for a while being kind of a public speaker. I've been working in tech for 15, 16 years now, and half of that time I've been a public speaker. I think I started, oh wait, this is later. So 6.5 years ago, I think I started giving talks, and I call myself now a cloud native human because I don't know what I'm doing really. I do a lot of things in this cloud native space. In my day job, one of my day jobs is I'm a freelance platform engineer right now, working with the Dutch government, which is great. I also am, as you mentioned, one of the co-chairs of the CNCF's Tag App Delivery. So my other co-chair, Robert, has been giving a talk earlier. And you probably also maybe have seen Mateo's talk, who's also part of the tag. So we are an advisory group. What we do is we advise the TOC, the Technical Oversight Committee, on anything that's happening in the ecosystem of app delivery. So when there's like projects that are kind of in our field who want to become like sandbox projects or graduated or incubated, we will review them and we will give a recommendation to the TOC. I cannot get your project into Sandbox because the TOC has to vote for it, but if you buy me a drink later, maybe I can give a recommendation. I'm also mentioned the Chief Karaoke Officer for a little thing called Kuberoki, which is the first and only Kubernetes karaoke community. I started it like 2 years ago, I think. I think we had the first party in Amsterdam after KubeCon, rented a little bar and just had a lot of fun there. And of course, since then, I've been doing it for pretty much every conference that I go to. I go and scout out some karaoke places, and then during the after party, I'll be, like getting people excited, and then we'll usually be like a group of like, let's say 10 to 30 people going there. So for tonight, obviously have stuff planned. I will tell you about it later. Before I'm where I am right now, I started as a software developer, web developer. I started actually in PHP. Well, like there's always something to complain about with PHP. But then I moved to DevOps engineering, and then like about 7 years ago, I moved to Amsterdam and joined this cloud native consultancy. And then I did like developer advocacy for the last 3 years. But I was working for US startup companies, which was quite stressful, and it just really burned me out. So I took some time from my kind of day job. I quit my job. I was a public speaker for a long time, and then I started doing other things like stand-up comedy. I was actually doing some stand-up comedy here in Vienna on Sunday, and I started doing musical theater, which was super fun. It really helped me kind of like put things into perspective, like if you get to know some artists, you know what like real suffering is like. So all of the techie stuff just kind of didn't seem like so bad anymore. So with all the experience in and out of tech, what is it that I want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about like all the things that I've learned doing, all these like stage performance stuff, and like what I think we can take from there to apply into like, tech, and how we think about value and how we think about developer happiness. Okay, great. There we go. So, what is developer happiness? These are some very happy developers. This was the launch of Windows 1998, which was 26 years ago. Hope you all feel old now. And the question I have is like, these are some very happy developers, right? But how would you measure the amount of happiness here? Is it like it's one Ballmer happy, but only like 0.3 Bill Gates happy? Because he didn't seem super happy. And also like, the question is like, why do we need to measure happiness? Why do we need to put like numbers and models and metrics to these things? Of course, the answer is AI. We need to gather data to be able to machine learn things. So I give us a moment to read through this. There's always a relevant XKCD for this, right? But yeah, we think in this industry specifically, we tend to think, you just gather data, big data, you throw it into AI, and then it will just give you kind of the right answer, and that's how we understand things now. But in reality, a lot of times when I've seen people work with AI, it's just like, let's just like make it give me the reply, the answer that I want it to give me. So the first thing that we need to understand is that, yes, of course, we can measure some things, but everything we measure will always only be an approximation. And it will also only be based on our assumptions, which just may be wrong. There's many ways that we can measure developer happiness or DevOps efficiency and maturity. You might know about, like, this is the employee net promoter score, or you may have heard of DORA, which is the DevOps research and assessment center, maybe, I don't know. DORA, for example, has these metrics, and so change time, deployment frequency, change fail percentage, and failed deployment recovery time. And I think these are really good metrics. They're very useful to kind of like measure your DevOps maturity, but it doesn't really translate to developer happiness necessarily. I think they are useful for what they do, but if we talk about the happiness, efficiency, cognitive load, all those things that we now care about, it doesn't really quite grasp that. So this is my hot take for today, or these are my two hot takes for today, is that people are not laboratories. People are actually, in fact, unique. So, I think that there is a time and place for data, and there's a time and place for metrics. There's this saying that without data, all you have is an opinion. And I agree with that. It totally makes sense. But when you talk about people and statistical approaching people in a statistical way, there will be a lot of them who will just fall through the cracks. And also, if you think about like ideas like diversity, where we are saying that everyone is different, everyone's their own little snowflake, and that is the value of people. Everyone has like their own perspective, their own idea of how to do things and what's valuable. If we then go on the other side and then like judge people based on like statistical approaches, then that completely goes against that idea. And people who are very different, have very like extreme maybe positions, will be effectively excluded from the group. There's also some synergies that you can't replicate. So I used to work with a company called Jimdo. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a website, like what you see is what you get editor kind of thing, like Wix, or Squarespace, I think. And I was in this team called the payment team. They were super efficient. They were like really good for people who were doing all their project management themselves. They did pair programming. They had like this cool Kanban thing going. And it worked really, really well, but only with these 4 people. As soon as they tried to add other people into this group, or they tried to like use their processes and put it into another team, it just didn't work. It would always fall apart. So sometimes some things just work with these specific people and they don't work with other people. So where does this leave us? This is the biggest learning I've had coming from theater, is that it always comes down to the community around you. It is always the cast and the crew that make or break production. Get it? Thank you, thank you. So if we can't use metrics, what other things can we do to think about happiness or efficiency? So you might have heard about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's a book that was written some time ago. It's a fictional story about this very dysfunctional executive team. And the author basically goes through some aspects and properties that dysfunctional teams have and how to maybe address them. Now, there is some controversy around this book because it's not, strictly speaking, scientific. It's a made-up story, right? But I do think the aspects, it does hold true. So I'm just gonna, talk you through this. And I'm sure, if you worked in any kind of team, you probably know about, have noticed one or multiple of these properties. So the absence of trust is the unwillingness to be vulnerable with the group. The fear of conflict, that means that you're just seeking the harmony, which is often forced or fake, toxic positivity is something that you might have heard of, instead of looking for constructive feedback and criticism and having a discussion about things. Lack of commitment often happens when people pretend to buy into a decision, but then they actually don't really believe in it or don't really want to do it. Which kind of leads to ambiguity throughout the organization. That often also leads to avoidance of accountability, because if I don't really agree with the decision that we made, then I will also not want to be accountable for it. And then if you tell me, why didn't you do it? I'm I didn't agree to it, actually. This monitor is going to turn off in a second, and I can't see my notes anymore. And then finally, also might lead to the inattention to team results. This is when people focus more on their individual goals and their individual successes than the successes of the team. Has any of you, I'm very interested now, have any of you ever experienced one or more of these? Yeah. So if you think about things maybe in that kind of way, I do believe that every person would like to work in a good environment, right? No one wants to go to work and hate it, I think. So what can we do? For one thing, I think we need to start embracing uncertainties. Instead of trying to optimize for processes and trying to always kind of not expect the unexpected, but kind of having a plan for everything, I think we need to train ourselves to be very comfortable with what we're doing, so by the time that something unexpected or unimagined happens, we're so secure in ourselves and our capabilities that we can just adapt and improvise, like I'm doing now because my speaker notes are gone. And I've done this talk twice to myself in my hotel room. So in theater, what you have is you get a script, right? Actually, you get 2 scripts. So this one is the one script that is giving you kind of the dialogue and the stage direction and the the scene transitions and everything. And then this one is the vocal script that has the music, that has the lyrics, and also which harmonies are together with what, and the singing part, basically. So this is the script of Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which was the first musical that I've done. It's, by the way, a pretty good one. I know it kind of feels like it's a Disney kind of thing, but it actually is super fun and quite intelligent. So if you have the chance to see it, I would definitely recommend. But my point here is that these scripts, they are not prescriptive, they're guidelines. So in musical theater, you have a director, you have a musical director, and you have a choreographer. And they will come together and work out kind of a vision for the production even before they start casting, completely before the production even starts. And they will agree very, very broadly on kind of vibe, stage design, character style, and so on. And based on that, they will cast. They will talk to the costume designer and so on. So these things can always change. These things can always be adapted. So I was in another musical. It was Monty Python's Spamalot. It's a great musical, except for there's one song in it that is called "You Won't Succeed on Broadway Without Jews." Yeah, it was already kind of had a tinge of anti-Semitism when they did it in like the 90s, but we had the show this year, and it was obviously very, very controversial. Like the cast, like including myself, I was not comfortable doing it. So we had to change the lyrics of it basically, and like change kind of the dance and everything, which was fine because then it's important that you feel comfortable. If you just go around stage and go like, not fucking great. Oh, sorry. The other thing is that every actor will have their own vision and interpretation of the character they're playing. So we are rehearsing for months in this rehearsal space only, and then 2 to 4 weeks before the show, we will have something called a Sitzprobe. That is when we run through the entire play for the first time with the band, so there's a live band, and we will have to adjust tempo and volume, so kind of like it goes together. There's something in musical theater, it's called underscoring, which is when the actors will talk, have a dialogue, but there's music. So it's not singing, but there's like musical underscoring. So you need to figure out the musical cues, like when does the song start and so on. And during this entire process, things can constantly change, and they will constantly change. So there's never a definitive version of the script. It will just, up until the last show, things will always change. So we would call the premiere the real dress rehearsal because, as I said, you constantly figure out new stuff. When you go on stage and you finally have an audience for the first time, you are still figuring out stuff. You see how the audience reacts. Sound, lights, everything is different with an audience, and everything is in constant organic flux. If you've been a public speaker and you have a talk and you give it multiple times, like I give my talks usually for a year, I will change it throughout the entire year, right? Like I give it, I get feedback, I change it. So yeah, everything's always changing. And like maybe you have a joke and that killed 100 times when you were rehearsing it, but then with a particular audience, it just doesn't work. Like with Cinderella, for our matinees or our afternoon shows, we had a lot of children, and they just loved like the physicality, but they didn't really, like our spoken jokes. So it was really like we were leaning more into physicality and physical comedy during the matinees. So I guess what my point is, by the way, that's me, is that you can never like control everything. You cannot control the reaction of people. The only thing that you can do really is to set yourself up for success. Another thing, and I think that is quite important actually, and you might disagree with me, but I think we need to also practice to be together with each other, to like practice like closeness with our team members. Because the more you practice, the more you will grow as a unit, and you learn about each other's quirks and strengths and weaknesses, and you know when you maybe need to jump in for your teammate because you know they have a weakness here. So in Cinderella, I was one of the knights, so we were kind of the comic relief for the prince. And there were some scenes where the prince basically just didn't leave the stage for like half an act. So I was just like a secret carrying out around his water so he could drink at some point. And you just like, by doing it, you just learn like, oh, okay, like he really needs this, and there's no one else there to help him, so I'm gonna step in and do something for him. And the more we did this, the more I really felt like, oh, this is my prince, and I really need to help him. So during the show, I was really into it, and I really got into the character of it. There's another thing in theater which are called, the people are called intimacy coordinators. So we would practice intimacy. So here, again, this is me. So this is from Spamalot, and I was playing Sir Lancelot, the homicidally brave knight. And the story of him is that he is very masculine, and he gets to know Herbert, and they bond over their abusive fathers. And Lancelot kind of realizes that he's gay, and they have this whole song about, like him being gay, and then they make out on stage. When we were practicing it during rehearsal, we were talking a lot about consent and boundaries. And we practiced the kiss like twice. We're just like, okay, this is the length of it, this is the intensity of it, that's fine. Also, like, my stage partner, Philippe, is very gay, so that helped also a little bit. Yeah, just to feel safe, I guess. But then when we were on stage, like, we were quite comfortable with the kiss, but when we were on stage, what happened was, this was my first stage kiss, right? So I thought, Felipe's quite experienced, I'm going to wait for him to cue us out of the scene. Now he was thinking, I love this, and I'm just gonna keep going because the audience loved it, and we were just like full on making out for like a good half minute probably, and everyone was cheering like, woo! This is what I was told. The music director was basically just like, and completely forgot that he needs to cue in the music. So this was fun, and this was great, and I loved it, but this could have only happened because we talked about consent and boundaries and what we wanted out of the scene, and we felt safe with each other. So now I'm not saying that you should be making out with your teammates unless you want to, and if you're both consenting adults, please go for it. But I think there is a lot of value in talking about boundaries, right? Like, like giving feedback. I don't like when you talk to me like that, or I really enjoy when you do this thing, you know? Because we have to work closely together, and sometimes, you know, feelings just come up. It's important to talk about them. Now, this really is the biggest one for me. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of grew organically from the cast being together and working on the script, and it does, you know, like I was talking about inattention to team results and lack of accountability and lack of commitment because people don't feel like they own the success of the team, right? So by encouraging ownership, this is something that we can do to encourage people to really invest into the team's success. So I think I said before, or if I didn't, a performance is only as good as its weakest cast member, right? And each performance is also uniquely influenced by the cast. So in Spamalot, I was understudying for Lancelot, which means that I would jump in case the main actor was sick or something, and I also got one performance as Lancelot. But the rest of the time, I was in the ensemble. I was part of Robin's minstrels, so they run around and they make fun of Robin because he like always poos his pants. And the great thing was that the lead minstrel, Dominic, and I, we got to play our own instruments on stage, which was just so great because that meant that we could bring our own unique things into the show, and it really felt like this is our scene. This is what we do. We created here, right? It was only our musical instruments. The band was not playing while we were doing it. That was really fun. And you're always, if you're in an ensemble, so the background, you are always encouraged to improvise within kind of your character. So if you have like a marketplace scene and the principals are in front talking, right, and then you have the background actors, we're obviously not all like this, right? That would be weird. Instead, you usually get like a backstory and you interact with your other ensemble members. So in the Cinderella marketplace scene, what we had was there was a guy and his girlfriend was telling him that she was pregnant and he was proposing to her, and then this other woman realized that he was cheating on her, so then it turned out he was cheating with every single woman on stage, basically. And that like almost took away from the front scene. But it was fun, because then also it means every single decision you make, it counts, it's important. And I think that is the same with, you know, even if you're not building the shiniest, most awesome new tool in your company, maybe you're just providing the infrastructure, still, every decision you make counts, and it is part of the bigger thing that you produce. So, what does all of this look like in action? I have about a minute, so I'm going to be super fast with this. We had an outage recently that lasted for about half a day, and it affected every single one of our production systems, which is great. And then what I did was I ran a post-mortem, and I just wanted to talk about our incident response strategy, which was good, because I found out we didn't have any. So that was nice. But when I was like, we were talking about, okay, like what kind of incident response plan do we want to put into place? So the things that I wanted to focus on were these three things. Building trust, or like trust, autonomy, and practice. So we were looking at the facts only, and I was always reiterating that everyone was always doing the best at any time. And also, if we go through a tough situation together, like an outage, it will help build trust as well. I remember when I was a consultant, you know, in the end of the day, you kind of have these like war sessions, you talk about things with each other. It really helps bond. I still am very good friends with the people that I was consulting with. So yeah, that was great. Can I get like additional 1 or 2 minutes? Okay. Yeah, the other thing is like autonomy. Again, like being part of it, owning part of this strategy. And what I did was that everyone had their own kind of very specific role. So we had the people who fix and recover or like investigate and recover the incident, but then we also had an additional separate engineer who would be doing the communication. And of course, there's the person who's on call at the time of the incident. And they have very specific roles. It doesn't mean that we can't help each other, but if you feel like I have my own thing going and it's very important that I do this right, it can really help, again, with feeling like in charge of your own little world. And then finally, practice, right? So again, I think practicing is super important so we can feel comfortable and secure with what we're doing. So what we're going to do in the future is we're just going to run some drills of the incident response and of our recovery scenarios. And by the time that the next incident rolls around, hopefully, it won't feel so scary, right? If you're only releasing once every 6 months, it's a whole thing. But if you're releasing multiple times a day, it's just it's just a click of the button, right? And the good thing is, if you do drills regularly, it will also help build trust with each other. So we're going back to the trust thing. Okay, so that has been my talk. The one thing that I want to leave you with is that I would love it if you all support local arts and artists, not just the big ones, like I'm actually paying so they let me on stage. Not here, but like for musical theater. Go see a show, go see a concert. Arts and social sciences and all of that, they are very important. I think there's a movement within tech, or there was, or there still is, that kind of believes that tech is just tech and the people don't matter. And I feel like, looking at things like platform engineering, we really have learned that that's not true. Art and social sciences and ethics and all those things, they do matter very much. I also have some other hot takes. Oh, I forgot. So this is one of my hottest, maybe, is that tech problems don't really exist. All tech problems are human problems. We are just choosing to use tech to solve them. But we could also solve them through design or through once you understand the problem from a different way. You can throw AI on everything if you want to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the right solution to the problem. And I think that we should be solving problems with low tech or no tech, because every single line of code is something you need to be maintaining. So every single line of code is technical debt. And you should consider whether you want that, whether you want to do that. Like you write a line of code, it's elegant, it's beautiful, so someone's gonna maintain it. Okay, so finally, this is the karaoke place. It is in the top of this mall, Lugner City, I think, behind like some Indian restaurant or something. That is a very good sign, by the way. So Mike, hi, save it. If we're gonna go there after the after party. If you are not going to the after party, if you wanna come join later, you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram to find out where we are. I will try to keep this updated. And if you just want to follow me, I am Lian Makes Things pretty much everywhere on the internet. You can also go to my website, where I'm linking to all the other places. And yeah, that is it. Thank you so much. Oh, can I just like really quickly, because I need this for my ego. I just want to take a picture, and then maybe like everyone can like raise their hands or yell Kubernetes or something real quick. Yeah, can we do that? Awesome.
3,
right.
2, 1, go!
Wow, that was great. Thank you.
Lian, thank you so much for this keynote. Extremely refreshing. Also the, not just always tech focus.
Yeah, we're so bored by tech now, right?
Yeah, I'm not supposed to make statements, right? Otherwise, I would just say I absolutely agree. So are there questions to Lian or also things that resonated with you?
Yes, please tell me how great I am. I really need it because I'm an artist. There's a question over there. There's a raised hand.
So I think one of the points you mentioned the Dora metrics, and I think one of the things that people get wrong about these metrics is once you start measuring them and present them to the team, people adjust to the metrics that they are being judged.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's a question, but yeah, that sounds like the abstract to another talk. So the comment was that when people present the DORA metrics, that people tend to then adjust kind of like just to meet the metrics, just to improve and game the metrics, and that's absolutely right. I was a developer for a long time, for some time. It felt like forever, and it was like, oh, we want to get the GitHub star number up. You know what's the biggest, like the fastest way to do that? Just open a bunch of GitHub accounts and star your repository, right? Like again, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like a model is just an abstraction of reality, and you can game it and you can do things with it. I mean, I think there is a space where you can say, I just need money from investors, and they just look at GitHub stars, so just like, buy a bunch of GitHub accounts, that's fine. But when it comes to things like how to work with humans, how to make that more efficient, you need to really start thinking about it. And I think our industry, again, like fetishizes the worth and like the data and how we kind of can understand everything and can optimize everything. And sometimes it's not about optimizing, sometimes it's just okay to just be and just to do things. Not everything has to grow constantly. Not everything has to always, be the best that it can possibly be. Sometimes it's okay to just be. Like, I'm really traumatized by Silicon Valley, by the way.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay to just be. I think that's a perfect closing statement for the last talk of today. Big applause for Lian. Thank you.